Coaches and affiliate owners, we are super excited to launch our FitFilliate Founders League. It is hosted over on the Skool platform, and you'll find a link in the show notes or a link in our bio over on Instagram. This is a group where there will be higher level conversation, higher level thinking, critical thinking, creative thinking, a little bit of fun, but the end game is everybody is helping everybody else be better. So I'll see you over there. And welcome back to our next episode of the FitFilliate podcast. Got the band back together this week. Admittedly, Andrew does look like he's in a correctional facility somewhere and has been given 10 minutes access to jump on. So hopefully he can stay for the entire time before he has to go and get his teardrop tattoos. And also joined by the one and only Tony.
For all the American listeners, that's a tattoo.
Tattoo.
There hasn't been a language job for a while, so well done. How are you, my friends?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Lisa?
All the better for seeing you two this week and having the
gang
back
2
together.
In the morning?
It's 2:37.
I love it. Hope everybody else appreciates that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I don't know that we get much fan mail about that, but it's fine.
I'll make it my life's work. Everybody message Lisa at FitFilliate.com and tell her how amazing she is for getting up at 2:30 every single week to make sure you guys get a new episode.
Well, Lisa, you better be careful because this podcast is about to blow up considering we start to get these not clickbait marketing, shorts. I'm calling them shorts with words on them. I know you're working on some. And when those, I got Tony on Instagram. I got Tony on Instagram. That's step one.
Let me tell you.
What's going to happen is people are going to start to roll through these things and be like, my Lord, this is fantastic information and quality. I
re-downloaded that app yesterday, and I've been venting about this ever since. You know how much time I spent on Instagram mindlessly scrolling? I was like,
you did?
Yeah, over
Tony,
an hour.
That sounds like a you problem.
It is. Why do you think I left the software? I was like, I got to get out of here.
What?
I detoxed. And someone was like, I think you've been out long enough. You can have another drink. You'll be fine. Nope. Definitely was not.
There's so many things there. So many things.
Yeah.
But I think this is year 3 of the podcast. So there's been quite a few Wednesdays that I...
Turns out if you give me a platform, I'll just talk and talk and talk.
And yet we dragged you on here kicking and screaming. See, Andrew, this is the potential. You dragged him kicking and screaming to Instagram 3 years later. Look at where he is here. So there's hope for you yet. You could be doing a weekly live show. Which
here I am walking.
I don't think he has an option. From what the team says, I don't think he's got an option.
No.
I said that I was going to prove everybody wrong, and then I was the one that got proved wrong.
So
yeah, that's the clip that's going to live from this episode forever. That Tony was proved wrong. I'll clip it so it says I was wrong. I've got a couple of those now. Over 3 years, I've got like 2.
Oh, please.
So today I thought it was really, and not that we want to add to speculation and noise that's, really quite loud in the community at the moment. And, understandably so, there's a lot of people with big feelings after the games. And we're not going to get into, everything that happened, except we are mindful of people's thoughts and feelings, and people have been affected, and our thoughts are with those who are directly personally affected. But one thing I have noticed is that there's an incredible amount of confusion. There's plenty of division and anger and lots of other emotions, but mainly our focus is the affiliates, because we care about the affiliate model. We want to protect the affiliate model. And there's a lot of affiliates that are confused about, what do I do now? And I was reflecting on this yesterday. It reminds me a lot of, when we had the drama. So I'm not in 2020. Let's just say
is it now just called the drama? That's it.
That drama. And this is incredibly different, but the vibrations and the feelings from the affiliates are similar. They don't know what to do, because it feels like to some of them that the mothership has gone off course. It has let them down, and they don't know what to do. Do I stay affiliated? Do I de-affiliate because of my values around people's actions and corporately? Like, what do I do, and what does this mean? And I thought that for us, because our strength is the affiliates, and we care about the affiliates, and we care about the affiliate owners, we can add a little bit of maybe light to this and talk about some ways that they can navigate through, difficult times. Small topic today. Small.
Yeah, I can tell how small it was by the length of the lead-in that you put in there, because you knew you were leading Andrew and I into the lion's den on this episode, that I would have come up with a hangnail as a reason why not to show up and talk about this. But I guess we're here now. So way to bring us in.
And I think that was really well said about shedding light. And, full disclosure, I'm an employee of CrossFit, so there is a third-party investigation going on. So anything I say currently even can be used and will be used. And I take that very seriously. Knowing that's happening, I do want to focus on the affiliates and say, what let's see. Well, I want to word this correctly. This should have, you might have feelings and practices, but when you bring this back to your gym, or if this is a thing that's emotionally, you're just mad, and so you now it's a CrossFit thing, I think that there's room for improvement on yourself right there. And I look at it this way: in the 2020 debacle that Lisa referred to, everybody's already pissed off. They're disgruntled. Their business was doing poor. They weren't happy. They weren't making enough money. They didn't have enough time with their friends. All the things that Tony will talk about with success. What's the 5? What are they?
4 freedoms.
4 freedoms. Your 4 freedoms were being violated. But then you had an opportunity to get pissed off at a thing instead of looking what's inside here and what you're truly doing wrong at the moment. So I'm curious if that has anything to do with what's going on when it comes to how you operate thrusters, your specific warm up, your CRM, all these things that are your affiliate. And yeah, we don't like negative press. No one does. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Tony?
Gonna go get a snack. I'm not bound by the constraints that Andrew is in fact bound by. I'm however sensitive to the fact that he is in fact bound by them, and therefore this thing becomes bound by it. I do think that regardless of who's bound to what and whose responsibility is where, it's an important conversation only in the fact that people seem to be very heavily affected by it. But you could be on one side or the other, whether they should be or they shouldn't be. I don't think really matters. But what I do think is a good use of this platform and this podcast is to talk about why, God, this might be insensitive, why this was always the risk. And nobody paid attention to it. And I don't mean somebody drowning. That is a whole different conversation that I don't think that, for the reason we just discussed, I'll weigh in on. What I mean by this being the risk is that I'm upset by a lot of things from this. I was trying to figure out whether or not I should make that an actual post or I should not make it a post. And I didn't want to make it a post because I didn't want to do what I feel like a lot of people are doing, which is using this as an opportunity to call attention to themselves and bring attention to it. So I've left it alone and I've stayed away from it because it's hard to talk about it and say that it just doesn't matter, right? Because I don't want to diminish that somebody lost their life and a really incredible human lost their life doing what I would say is something that they love doing. I don't mean that. What I mean is that in and of itself is a complete total distraction from the thing that we do here, which is fight to protect and preserve the methodology. And what I'm upset about is, that somebody lost their life, but I'm upset about, yet again, the thing that saved my life and countless other people's lives is back in scrutiny again, right? And what I'm upset about is that despite all the time that has passed, this title that I'm not even going to bring up is still considered a thing, as opposed to what I would consider to be a lifestyle or an ethos, meaning, CrossFit's not going anywhere. Functional fitness is not a thing that is ever going to go away ever again. Like, the world has been changed ever for that. What I'm upset about is that sport and the methodology should have always been separate, and there was just no way to separate them in the way that we did them. And now, because of that, we've got this problem.
Now, hold on. I can't say this. This is more or less on the methodology side, because I like that and I want to stay on that point. The reason the sport was created is to prove the science experiment, which is the methodology. Mm-hmm. So that and I don't think anyone knew how cool. It's what it is. The games are cool. They're fun to watch. But they are so separate of the methodology, just like you just said, that we got intertwined with it. And so that is why I do care about the affiliates because they're coming to me and I'm going to be there for them. It's my job. And I do understand you are intertwined with the games due to the name. And I get, but Lisa.
No. I was going to add another layer to that. Like, I think in my mind, there's really 3 different silos here that they should be silos, but they get intertwined. Is that you've got CrossFit, the methodology, CrossFit, the sport, and CrossFit, the business. The brand. And yes, 90% of affiliates use the brand in their name. But I think where we get lost and confused is that, and I remember doing, let's talk 2020, because that's a little bit, one step removed. But I remember I did, everyone was de-affiliating and I did a video, and I thought long and hard before I did it, because I didn't want to buy into the noise. And I did it saying why we would stay an affiliate, and I remember very clearly stating on the video that we are not CrossFit the brand, like we are not CrossFit corporate. What happens up there is out of my control. All I can control is what's in my square footage with my black mat goodness and my people. And what I do is CrossFit the methodology. And when I could break it up that way in my own brain and then also communicate that, it made way more sense to me about, this corporate entity up here that, I pay to access information and a name from, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to hire and fire that I have no say over. They're going to, make wholesale changes, whatever. And that's okay, because I'm over here doing, constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity. And that's CrossFit. CrossFit HQ is a business. CrossFit the sport is a business. Whether you like it or not, it's a business. And I'm doing over here CrossFit the methodology. And that made it clearer for me. But I think that you're right, because we've all latched onto the name, everything has, intertwined. Maybe go back, 15, 16 years to the start of the sport. Maybe it's called something different. And then but we can't go backwards on that now. But, and then to the person who knows nothing and experiences nothing, it's all the same. And I get that that's where that confusion comes in.
Yes. And Lisa, I will double down on that. I use the short barbell thing. It's an analogy. So I was obsessed with the short barbell thing for a while, for operational capacity thing. I know one of the biggest problems inside of the affiliates right now is the square footage. Rent is too high. CrossFit takes up too much square footage. So this is like years ago. I bought all the little small bars, and then I cleaned like 315 pounds on one just to alpha my Instagram post and say like, oh, you think this is dumb? Can you clean 315 with a small bar? Anyway, I've grown up since those posts, but that is the same thing that you're saying right there, is that I had OG members who have been around for a long time. They go, Andrew, I ain't fucking touching one of these small barbells, idiot. I know what you're trying to do. I had new people that came in who knew no difference. They just thought that was the barbell that we used. And that's the same thing with the methodology today. When I get a new member in here, I'm like, hey, have you been on Instagram and like siphoned what CrossFit is? No, I say this is where we talk about the workouts. And I actually, Bill from CrossFit Cleveland, and I talked to the affiliates before. The number one way I sell CrossFit is I just sit there and talk about the 10 general physical skills. I don't say anything. I just start talking about the 10 general physical skills. This is the best selling. If you're a terrible salesperson, you just sit there and talk about it. People are like, damn, that makes fucking sense. They know no different. That's it. They're like, I don't know if we only use dumbbells in the gym. I don't know if we only do ring versus bar muscle ups. I don't know who's in charge. I don't know what happened with this CEO, that CEO. Like, no, it's just they're in your door now.
And right? I think too, we get, because we're in a CrossFit bubble, we think it's, the biggest event. It's the biggest, anything that happens in CrossFit is the biggest news in the world. And I remember, on Friday, I was at a medical appointment, Friday my time, Thursday your time, with my mother, and I'm watching, just sitting in a medical waiting room, and they had the news on. There was, I think it took 4 days for mention on the local news here that something had happened at a sporting event in another country. But in CrossFit, we're like, if something happens, we feel like it's like the world's biggest thing. But mostly people on the outside of the CrossFit bubble aren't aware of things. Now, I know in America at the moment it's a bit different because, there is a lot of content out there. But outside of that, it's very, it's not the Olympics. It's, to us, it's the biggest thing of the year. It's CrossFit Christmas, when the Open comes around, but it's not. It's in the entirety of the world, it's very small. And we don't like to hear that, but that's true.
I think it depends who you are, if it's CrossFit Christmas or not. I have very different opinions of it, but I ultimately fell into that camp too. I mean, I attended the games for 12 years straight. Like, I still thought they were fun, but to Andrew's point, they were designed originally to test this experiment that we've all actively taken part in, and to prove those results to the community at large. But that's really kind of, I think, where my disappointment, where I start to get upset. And what I'm upset about is that after all this time, we're not able to separate the sport from the methodology collectively. Some of us in core niches can. What I'm upset about is that people can't ultimately separate competing from training and training from coaching. And what I'm upset about is that we as a community are responsible for that. And by we, I mean all of us, because if we don't understand how this methodology changes and affects and saves lives, but we think that the point of this methodology is to arrive in some predetermined location and compete for this test, and we think that other people need to think that too, you're going to have a hard time with it. And so the reason why I say it's our responsibility is that what happens every single day, what I'm upset about is that because of what happened, there's a cry to limit exposure to the thing that I know will change the world. Right? And what I'm upset about that is that people need more of this, not less of this. What I'm upset about is that the attention is on somebody losing their life and potentially people losing their careers, and the attention's not been on people getting their life back for the last handful of years. And that's where it always should have been. And that's what I'm upset about community-wise, is that the games happen once a year, right? They happen in a handful of small events, and they are quote-unquote CrossFit Christmas. But what happens in an affiliate happens every single day, every day, all day. It's not HQ's job. People, I think, tend to look at HQ, back to your point about the first drama and whatnot, is this group of people who sit in this ivory tower, this Mount Olympus, and make decisions based on everybody's futures. And it's not, right? Their entire job is to protect the brand, to protect the methodology. And there's people who work their asses off to do that. And those people are worth protecting. And I think that's a very hard part of this conversation, because it does pull us into 3 different silos. But what I think is an effective use of everybody's time here is to talk about how things like this come up and how they were always the risk. Because we've said it on this podcast, at least I've said it on this podcast, the absence of whys, what's become wise. And many, many, many people, absent of their own whys, their own reason, their own essence for their affiliate existing, chose to partner with either what they consider to be CrossFit's greater why, or worse, the games as their why, right? And you see this when the Open comes up and other things. And And unfortunately, when that happens, don't be surprised when everybody is tied into it, wants to know and answers this or that. But I can say proudly that on my side of the screen, on my side of the affiliate world, this is not a conversation. They're not worried about, do I de-affiliate? Do I not de-affiliate? What are people going to say? People want answers because they're not tied into it. Because instead of being a part of the bigger community, proudly, most of the FitFilliate affiliates, all of them, have built their own community. And people are paying attention to that.
And I think, that's been a really important difference. Like when we talk about, what happened in 2020 and even like last year with the affiliation increase, we had clients who just continued on and just went about their day. There was no, because they had people to focus on, things to do, like decisions that were made that were out of their control. They didn't spend, days crying and wailing and wringing their hands, and because they knew what their purpose was. And it was interesting yesterday when I was pulling some clips from other podcasts, talking about our FitFilliate Founders League, in that, we spoke a lot about, getting back to your purpose will get you through any situation. If you are feeling a bit lost or in the dark or confused, then, you need to sit down and go back to, well, why did I do this thing in the first place? And if you think about that and that reason comes to you and you realized, I haven't thought about that for a really long time, but you get that feeling in your chest, you're like, that's why I need to keep doing this thing for, and look around the room for the people who really need me. And who, people who, yes, they care that something terrible happened to somebody in their family, but they don't care about corporate decisions. All they care about is, do you care about me, Andrew, as you stand in front of that whiteboard every day? Are you going to help, save my life? And I think that's bring it back to, there was a reason you started this, and it wasn't the games, and it wasn't, well, in a small percentage, maybe it was, but that wasn't why you started this thing. Because when you first walked into a CrossFit affiliate as a brand new member, you didn't do it because you were going to the games necessarily. You did it because you wanted to change something in your life.
And also, I was pulling up the Founders League right now because I feel like we should do like a Founders League commercial, but hear me out. It's not, it's like the most popular post. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, Tony probably wins on that one with his "What's your biggest time waster in your business" poll. And so I don't know. I'm going back to the Founders League.
The irony of that, a poll being the most popular post.
But I do want to bring up a post that I made, not because it's relevant, it's just relevant to what Lisa said. And I had that post in there that I really wanted to challenge. I'm looking for right now. What's the YouTube video I posted? America's not the greatest country in the world anymore.
Oh, from the newsroom.
From the newsroom, where Jeff Daniels goes on that rant. And it was like CrossFit, not the greatest thing in the world. Like there are people, like, so if we shift our mindset from putting so much idolization, if that's a word, inside of the brand, and just be like, I found CrossFit effective. That's why we do it. You don't, at the end of the day, that's the truth. It's probably the most effective fitness methodology in the last 100 years. Probably.
Hands down. Yeah.
And that's all you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. And it works. It goes back to the freedoms. One of your freedoms is being violated if emotionally something is holding so much on you, with just, it's an idolization piece, right? Like we are doing a fitness methodology, and if you like it, great. And if you don't like it, don't pay for it. If you don't think the affiliation fee, $375 a month, is worth what the brand is, if you want to go tactical, straight up, just Google Analytics, people Googling whatever, which some SEO professionals would argue it's even worth more than that. Some would argue it's worth not. I don't know who's right. You get to talk to me.
Charge you a lot more than that.
Yeah, someone will charge you a lot more to tell you an answer. You get to talk to me. I think that's worth $1,000. I'm just kidding. Yeah, at the end of the day, like, these are things, improvements we have made. Are there errors? Absolutely. And this isn't talking about in what just happened. It's just talking about, I think, where you were going with that, putting so much weight into it.
I think, like, Tony and I disagree often, but
Really?
particularly on this point, that he has this saying that, Tony's now worried about which saying is it that's pissed her off, but there's a list. But no,
she throws darts at him.
There's if I kick you in the shins and it hurts, it's your problem. It's your fault. Just because I kick, and I think in this instance that, to link in what you've just said, Andrew, that he might actually be right, and I'm never going to use that as a clip from the podcast. Just saying.
Way to do that statement. It's so much disservice in the way that you explained it. By the way, thank you for that.
But the way I think it's a powerful statement, and we have had numerous conversations about it. But in this instance, I think it is applicable in that, if people are pissed off or angry about a change that happens corporately, then they need to look at, well, why? And, because corporate's going to do corporate things. They're just going to, we are owned by private equity now. That's no secret. And, they have certain, metrics and drivers that they want to achieve, rather than just this blind and relentless pursuit of, virtuosity and the stuff that, Greg would pursue. So they're going to do their thing. So if they make a change and I react so viscerally to it that I'm just want to throw all my toys out of the cot and go, well, fuck you, this isn't right. You've put up my fees. What else are you doing for me? Then we do have to look internally and go, well, why did that hurt me so much? But we're not very good at putting the mirror back on ourselves in that way.
I think a constructive use of the rest of this conversation is potentially everybody has likely found themselves, hopefully, in a crystallization of discontent, in that they have realized that it's probably not a good idea to think that you've built your business on the collective identity or the actions or decisions of somebody else's business, right? And so how do you protect yourself from that conversation? And the answer to that, no matter whether you are in any industry or not, is that there has to be a reason for your business to exist. And I think where we struggle a lot with many affiliates, and we've talked about this enough times, is that 86% red ocean thing where most businesses are relying on extensions. And collectively, what that usually means is that they don't necessarily know why their business exists. They just know that another one did, and that seemed like a good idea, so I'd like to copy that one, right? Or that this global brand is doing a thing, and I'd like to be a part of that thing, as opposed to coming up with my own reason to do a thing. And if you would like to be, void of these conversations tactically, the solution is very simple. You have to get very crystal clear on why your affiliate needs to exist. It's why, one, it starts with an essay as it applies to HQ, and two, when you apply it to work with us, we start with that exact thing. What is the essence? What is the reason your affiliate needs to exist? And if you don't necessarily have the ability to articulate that, or worse, don't have a reason for it, we won't accept you. Not because there's anything wrong with you. It's just that we're not equipped to handle a conversation with a business who would like to emulate, replicate, or duplicate what somebody else is doing, right? We're here to help you build this thing. And what that ends up doing is not only creating your ideal future, your own ecology, it ends up setting you up to be impervious to the actions of others, right? I've said it on this podcast enough times that the two biggest threats facing the affiliate model today are standardization and doubt. And this is exactly what I was talking about. When everybody is identifiably, observably, and repeatedly the same, when one bad thing happens in one corner of the world, everybody's at risk. But if they all remain individually, identifiably unique and different, there's a reason to support the business owner. There's a reason to support that community, and there's a reason to be a part of that community as opposed to the confusing larger community.
Now, Tony, what if somebody wrote an essay in to a FitFilliate? I bet you would accept them if this was the short ecology essay. I love helping people. That's my why. But I also want, no, that if they didn't word it that way, if they worded it, I want you to help me find my why. They had the humility to say something of that nature. You know what I mean? If somebody said that, I actually feel like you'd be like, I'm very interested in your humility. I want to help you find your why. You know,
I mean,
like
that would be a better answer than most of the answers I do get when people first come in, because they're just, they don't really know what to say because they weren't primed to be able to come in and say it, and no one's asked them. So just like, I'm like, why do you do this? They're like, because I love CrossFit. And then you ask them what do they do, and they tell you functional fitness, and you're like, that's not what you do. But so yeah, the answer to your question is, I would love that, because I would, on that same call, would love to explore what that means to you, because that's, I think, the unique part of this. The beauty of, we don't need to get esoteric on it, but the beauty of functional fitness is that it's infinitely different to all of us, right? Like what my application of that is versus Andrew's versus Lisa's is wildly different, and that's what makes it so beautiful. And I think it can get whimsical. I think it can get a bit woo-woo when you get into those conversations, sort of publicly, and you blast out there. Everybody's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Get off your philosophy horse and come tell me how to do it. But like, that's really at its core. Like, if you come to me and you say, will you help me do this thing? My answer is no. I won't help you do this thing. I will help you, however, protect the thing that you set out to do, filter actions, decisions, and choices based on that thing that you set out to do, and make sure you get to that objective. But if you don't necessarily have an objective, or you can't articulate it yet, that's not an impasse. I mean, most people, I don't think, have it. And not for nothing, your whys do evolve, right? Like the why of FitFilliate has changed several times over the course of 4 or 5 years. And so it'd be reasonable for you to come in and have no idea what your why is and bring it up. But I think at its core, there's another side of this conversation, which I guess segues off Lisa's disservice to my statement of shin kicks. That statement comes from a question of, if I kick you in the shin and it hurts, whose fault is it? Generally speaking, everybody would answer, it's your fault. You shouldn't have kicked me in the shin. But that removes the observation of the situation, because maybe somehow I think kicking you in the shin is a way of telling you I love you, or I think it's funny, or it's enjoyable. And maybe I don't realize that you already had a bruise there, or you have edema and you're incredibly sensitive, or insert XYZ. And I think it's easier to understand if I lined up 10 people and I kicked all 10. I think we would all agree that all 10 people would experience that reality differently, based on only on their own experience, and most importantly, their expectation. The people who will be the most upset by me kicking them in the shins are the ones who least expect me to kick them in the shins. They'd be like, why would you do that to me? Right? And so there's a whole lot to that conversation, but the point of that conversation is to lead into a bigger, call it sort of like my life's work with this thing, is helping people get into a place in their life, specifically in their business, but in their life, where you can be an active observer in your life versus an active participant in your life. And what I mean by that is to get kicked in the shin and first process, why would Lisa have done that? And then to understand, oh, maybe she did want to hurt me. Then, okay, I can get mad. Or maybe she was saying hello, or maybe in her culture on her prison island, that is what they just do for fun. Right? Like, I don't know. Right? But when you can step into an active observer role, it's a superpower, because it allows you to not only interact on a day-to-day basis with your life as you know it, but it lets you see the world differently. You get to see the world through the role of observation versus participation. As it applies to this conversation, that's huge, because if you can step into or out of the active participant, the emotional turmoil, the incitatory series of events that have unfolded, and however you may be feeling about it, and you can step into the observation role, you can see both sides. And that's where I think media has gone bad.
Well, that reminds me of, I was doing a level one time, and Joe Westerland, name drop. I don't know how many people know who that is, but he's a very philosophizer as well. And he's funny when he does it. He's very humorous. And I remember him one day, side rant, might have been a question, obviously not in the material, but he said, I believe that as CrossFit people, we as a culture have the unique ability to look outside of our own box. And he said, we need to fight to keep that. This kind of goes with what you just said there. You actually detach yourself
Mm.
and objectively look at, why am I feeling a certain way? And like, yeah, Tony's a philosophizer, right? He's got great, great tongue. He can articulate. I look at Brian Shantosh as the same way, except he ain't going to talk like you, and he knows that. I remember Hitosh
I
one
disagree. He's
time.
better than Ed, I think.
Well, there's different big words, right? I remember Tosh working with him, and we always had a unique friendship based on how we met. And I remember working with him, and we were doing hell in that lunch. And he knows I love to compete. He knows so much about me as my soul without even, it's almost weird. And I remember him whispering to me, he's like, I'm gonna fucking kick your ass in this workout. And I laugh because I know what he's trying to do. And I go, Tosh, it's just, what we do on the whiteboard, force, distance, and time, fitness. You're not. I appreciate you trying to crush me mentally right now. I appreciate. He goes, I'm going to go out so hard that you're not going to be able to catch me. And I go, okay, I'm going to trust the methodology. This motherfucker sprinted a 400 faster than anyone I've ever seen. Pulled a 21 kettlebell swings down. Went out for the second run, almost just as fast. And I'm sitting here going, what the fuck's wrong with this methodology for a brief second? And then only the lactic acid inside of his muscle system finally on round 3 had him break up a swing because of probably so much blood was going
He's
to
going
his
to launch the
forearms,
kettlebell into space, yeah.
pumped from his heart that literally, and I just barely beat him. But at the end of the day, in my head, I think I was like a competitor at that time. I was like, I think there's something more to looking like what he just did. Like that was, I'm so thankful that he did that to me on that day, because it really, and just like I think more people need to experience things like that, and I think that FitFilliate does a great job with bringing that why out of you, and like you just said, detaching, looking.
And I think when you can develop that skill, and that's definitely been a challenging lesson that I've acquired along the way. I've got a few bruises on my shins to speak of, but when you can stand outside that and you can actually, oh yeah, I understand that now. When you can detach and just observe and just be still for a moment and observe, you can actually look around when there is a lot of noise and people, bringing the pitchforks and torches, and they're going on a hunting party and all the rest of it, and then you can stand back and see some of that noise for what it really is, and you don't necessarily then blindly run into that fire and go, yeah, this is where it's got to be. You can actually see, hang on a minute, you're just agitating with no skin in the game, you're just creating issues, or you're just want to make this about you, or you just want to promote XYZ, or have people go, I'm feeling lost, I'm in a state of panic, come and buy my thing. Like, and fuck, there is that happening at the moment. Like, and when you have that ability to stop and be still and just look for a minute rather than just reacting, you can, one of the things that I used to work on myself was the ability to respond, not react, because I was very like just instantly react. But when I learned how to make myself stop, be still, observe, and respond, I was a much healthier human and able to make better decisions for what was best for me rather than just running blindly after the mob.
Yes. Lisa, here's one you're going to take. Maybe you've heard it before. See everything, respond to some things, react to nothing. But it's see everything. And I truly feel if people had that, boom, that was their, you don't have to react to anything.
Because people are telling or doing things or acting or behaving based on, narratives they're running in their own brain. And we don't necessarily know what those narratives are or what their stories or the insecurities or the securities or whatever it is that's driving that. So we just see what's put out there. So you have to see it. And, you want to information gather, go, okay, how much information can I get so I get the whole picture, or as much of the picture as I can get? But also understanding that those people who are running along with the pitchforks and the torches and everything else, that's a narrative that they're telling themselves to make You know, we're amazing as adults that we like to self-soothe. So we'll tell ourselves stories to make ourselves feel better and justify any fucking bullshit that we want to tell ourselves or our reasons for doing something. But it's having that ability to go, okay, I've got as much information as I can get, and this is how it makes me feel. But what does it mean for me?
Hmm.
And I think that's important.
I mean, there's one, if you're lucky enough, I guess we'll go back to the Tashas, and one, if you're lucky enough to know him, there's something definitely capable, uniquely capable inside that human, not only in terms of his ability to do I've watched him attempt this psychological warfare enough times, even into his own detriment, but still enjoy it nonetheless. There's a reason why, obviously he and I are such great friends, but the two methodologies of the hard way or Diesel Day and FitFilliate go hand in hand. And most of that, to bring it back to about Tosh, is without giving away the curriculum that is a core part of the Diesel Day. Like the reason why Diesel Day became a core part of the curriculum of FitFilliate, if there was such a thing as a curriculum, is because of the principles of the left hand. And really, when it comes down to what's being taught in the principle of left hand, is exactly this: your ability to, in that case, to step outside of the middle of 13 or 14 or 15 hours and everything that you're feeling, experiencing, or otherwise, and step outside and say, hey, first and foremost, I'm okay, right? And then to figure out, what are you pointing at, right? And I'll save the other fingers because I do believe they're proprietary and he deserves that respect. But the point of that whole system is that, one, your left hand is always with you, so you can always check in with it, right? And two, the point of checking in with it is it gets you to check out of yourself and check in with what's going on. Because this conversation is not an attempt to invalidate how people are feeling. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When you can get out of reaction and you can get into observation, you can better understand where people are coming from. And I think that that's important. But as it applies to your business, it's even more important, because everybody knows what it's like to be in the role. Whole life's on the line, sweat, tears, blood, everything is on this thing, and everything feels personal, right? And so this is where this became so important in FitFilliate, which was to get you to a place where you could become an observer as opposed to a participant. Because then when somebody sits down at your desk and tells you all the things that you did wrong in the last 2 weeks or 2 days or 2 hours or 20 minutes of a class, you can say, okay, how can I do better, right? As opposed to the opposite reaction, which is normally what ends up happening. And as it applies to this whole conversation, what we've always tried to help you guys with through the work with FitFilliate is to know that, one, you already have everything you need to be successful. Two, you already have all the resources you need to be successful. Three, the only thing that you're missing observably at this point is your belief in those two things, right? And what that requires is you to believe in something first and foremost. And that's why we start with why so much. It's not about some altruistic, esoteric sort of pursuit of a whimsical future. It's that by getting you to believe in something, your reason for this fight, I can then anchor to that belief. And in the middle of the 13th hour, in the middle of the night, in the middle of your quote unquote Diesel Day, as it applies to business, I can remind you why you believe in yourself. And then in that moment, we can step back into an observer role, out of the participant role, quiet all the noise that's happening, right? Because like when you get into something like a Diesel Day, hour 13, your ankle is going to be talking to you, right? There's going to be a lot of noise on that back trail, right? There's a whole lot of things going on, and you need to know how to filter it. You got to know how to calm it down. And if you're a participant and you're feeling that knee or you're feeling that ankle, no, the heavens could run on fire at that moment, and you're not going to pay attention to anything except for how that ankle feels, right? But to step away from that and say, hey, I'm okay, right? I'll carry on. What can I do? What's the most important next step for me, right? Left foot, right foot. And lo and behold, the ankle stops hurting. And the same thing happens here. The affiliates are safe as long as the affiliates remain individually and identifiably in pursuit of their own thing. But that's the important conversation that has to happen. Absent of standardization, absent of doubt, get rid of those two things. Get back to remembering why this fight is worth happening, and it makes it all make more sense.
I've always had a dream of I hope the diesel days go for another, let's say, 6 years, because I've always had a dream of taking my boys to it. The first time I wanted it to be I would want it to be the first time I would do it would be with them, because I look at something like that as so profound, and I find so much humor in these deep thinking whys as I go back to funny parts of movies, and like to Tony's whole thing, oh, he's going to be so like people listen and think, oh, he's a philosopher. It goes back to like the Lion King, right? Where you have the Rafiki, the monkey, hit him in the head with a thing. And he's like, it doesn't matter. It's in the past. And another thing from the Lion King. And then, so you got to think, oh, my dad just got murdered. Everyone's trying to take over my land. And then Timon and Pumbaa are like, well, have you ever just not fucking thought about not thinking about it? Kuna Matata? Like there's all these funny, or, Big Daddy, Adam Sandler. I love Adam Sandler. I think he's amazing. Where the wife's or the fiance's doing a surprise party, and she's like, we wasted the good surprise on you. And he's like, all right. Like the way he says, all right. He's just like,
all right. Yeah.
Yeah. You okay. And I just take so many things from simple parts of movies. And I feel like it's a gift to like look at and then apply it to your life. And I hope that people listen to this stuff and they just think like, man, why did that hit so hard? Or maybe it was funny, the three banter, but it hit me a little bit.
And I think, firstly, you did say in the Founders League the other day, today you didn't have a superpower, Andrew, and I think that that could be your superpower. You might need to go and revise that part.
Kind of like Bumblebee, you just use movie quotes to tell stories as opposed to like sound bites from the radio.
Yeah.
But, the goal of this podcast always was to, and, part of FitFilliate's original mission is to help people think different. And to, we talked on a couple episodes ago, but it's been a constant thread through about critical thinking. Like when CrossFit first started, and the early adopters jumped in because it was underground, it was cool, it was like not anybody knew about it, and you had to really be prepared to dig in, and it wasn't all just gifted to you on a plate. And you had to think critically. You had to critically evaluate, like, is throwing this rubber ball filled with pennies a great idea right now? And do I fit 2 more pennies in it, or is this way enough? Like, you had to make those decisions yourself. You didn't have someone saying, well, here's 15 choices of weight and here's how we can make. You had to look at what was presented to you and think critically about it. How does this apply to me, and how can I apply it, and how can I, make the best of this? And when we had that subculture, that underground culture, like there was all those, nothing was just a mob mentality, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And it could have been, but it wasn't, because the sort of people that were the early adopters are not that kind of persona.
Yeah. I think, if we, again, it's always, I feel like I'm always circling back up, or it's trying to keep this on a central thought line here. And, I said that a lot of this is on us, right, as a community to bring it back. And the thing that I think is incumbent upon us, aka, us in the community, the affiliates, et cetera, to protect the methodology, is we do have a duty, we do have an obligation to not only preserve, protect, but better understand the methodology and what it's capable for, and then explaining that to people, because that's really at its core what it comes down to. But in order to do that, we have to be very clear on what that methodology is to us, how we can articulate that to others. In order to do that, we need to be able to step outside of ourselves in order to be an active observer instead of an active reactive participant, right? And what I mean by that is this thing will change the world. It is already changing the world. You can't put the sausage back in the casing. Nobody will ever stop doing high intensity functional movements, period, regardless of what it's called, right? I'm just upset that we can't be proud of it, right? So it's our job to return that pride back to this thing. And the way that we do that is to separate this thing, create the individuality, create the relativity, so to speak, each individual person, and let them understand the value of it on their life. But most of it just comes down to remembering why you need to exist, getting crystal clear on why your affiliate exists, and then building your own community, and then you're impervious to the rest of it. And if that's the case, affiliates live forever.
You hit me hard with putting sausage back in the casing. I had a visual that I've heard a lot. I love analogies. Next marriage argument I'm in, I'm going to try that one and see if that
use
works.
Case varies.
Yeah, use case weird, but also like, okay, you can't put the sausage back in the case. Okay, yeah.
I'm just going to leave you two with that one. I'm just going to step out of the room and leave you with that.
Leah's trying to put the sausage back in the casing. Let's just get back to talk about how we're changing the world and how we're changing lives and away from this conversation. In order to do that, we got to actually start talking about the lives that we've saved and the world that we've changed.
Absolutely. I do that all the time as an owner right now. Like, I'll just sit here and like look.
That's the only real job that matters.
Yeah, I just sit there and I'll look. Like, I coached classes last night. We had a huge 4:30, semi-big 5:30, and I took the 4:30. My wife coached. It's like a little micro get away from the house. She hasn't coached in months, so it's like I was just observing, and I'm like, everyone in here, like I know so many stories about every single person's life. Like I can tell you so many things about their kids, and that just doesn't happen in other places. And at the end of the day, I always tell affiliates, like, well, what's going to differentiate us? Like, because you do hard shit and scary shit together, and that intimacy gets developed. Like, there's no reason why, if all you do is just talk to your members and ask them about their own personal lives and really be invested, more than likely it's going to work out. And that was the original thing, right, of CrossFit when we started, like, just the care. And I have rants on care. It does not mean you're going to stay in business, because no one cares about you. The government doesn't care about you. The tax collector doesn't care about you. So you look at
people care as much as the one going out of business. Just saying.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, so I don't love just that, like only focus on coaching and carrying, and that's not going to save you. But
and I think it's that, I had a conversation yesterday with an owner, as they're talking about, well, I'm pretty sure I know why this person came in and what they want. And I went, we should be having a conversation. You should be able to list off to me 6 dot points of exactly where they're at for any one of your tribe, and your coaches should do the same, because you've taken the time, to get to from the initial start of the relationship. 90% of the relationship is built in the first 10% of that, your interactions. It's like from day one, I'm sitting down, I'm seeing you, I'm hearing you. The very first time you reach out to me and you come in for a consult, like, I'm not just going to take you around and show you my black mat goodness and tell you about all the burpees and thrusters you're going to do. I'm going to say, hey, Andrew, what hurts? Where does it hurt? And I can help fix that. Like, what matters to you? What's important to you? What stopped you in the past? All these big questions that no one has ever asked them probably in their entire life. And then, you're right. Like, even today, I can still reflect back, and I see, people who are members at my gym, they're doing their own things now, or they're training somewhere else, and they'll post about an achievement, and I'll know still how much that achievement means to them, because I know where they started and what they wanted when they started and all the other struggles that went into that. And I can still take some pride in that, going, we started on that path together. And that's really the powerful part of being an affiliate owner, is if you're not, busy being distracted and running off and fighting battles that aren't necessarily yours to fight, you have the freedom to sit and reflect on that and really take that and use that to push you forward. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Rare silence.
You can let Lisa close the podcast, because she's always one that says, on that note. So on this note.
That's it. All right. That is on that note. Thank you, gentlemen, for navigating this today. I appreciate you and your input. And, it doesn't matter how many shin kicks I get. I love you guys and I appreciate your time. So there needs to be more of that in the world. All right. Enjoy your day, guys.
Bye.
Ciao.